Detective Sarah Martinez had seen many interrogation rooms in her 15-year career, but this one felt different. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the metal table where she sat across from a woman who seemed completely at ease despite being handcuffed. The woman, identified as Elena Volkov, appeared to be in her early 30s with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and piercing green eyes that seemed to take in every detail of the room. The case had started 3 days earlier when hikers discovered a shallow grave in the mountains outside the city. What they found inside shocked even veteran crime scene investigators. The body belonged to Marcus Chen, a local businessman who had been reported missing 2 weeks prior. The cause of death was a single gunshot wound to the head, execution style. What made the case even more puzzling was that Marcus had no known enemies and lived a quiet life running his small import business. Detective Martinez had been assigned as the lead investigator, working alongside her partner, Detective James Rodriguez. They had spent countless hours reviewing security footage, interviewing family members, and following paper trails. Every lead seemed to hit a dead end until they received an anonymous tip that led them to Elena Volkov. She had been arrested at a small diner on the outskirts of town, sitting calmly at a corner booth as if she had been waiting for them. Now, as Detective Martinez studied the woman across from her, she noticed something unsettling about Elena's demeanor. Most people in an interrogation room showed signs of stress, nervousness, or anger. Elena displayed none of these emotions. Instead, she sat with perfect posture, her hands folded on the table and a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. It was as if she found the entire situation amusing. Detective Rodriguez entered the room carrying a thick file folder and a cup of coffee. He was a veteran officer with 20 years of experience and had earned a reputation for his ability to crack even the toughest suspects. His approach was typically more aggressive than his partners, often playing the role of the bad cop to Martinez's good cop routine. Today, however, something about Elena made him feel uneasy. The interrogation began with standard questions about Elena's whereabouts during the time of Marcus Chen's disappearance. She answered each question with precision, providing alibis that would need to be verified but seemed plausible. Her voice was calm and measured, with a slight accent that suggested she might not be originally from the area. When asked about her relationship with the victim, she claimed they had never met. As the questioning continued, Detective Martinez noticed that Elena seemed to anticipate their questions. It was as if she had been through this process many times before. Her answers were always just detailed enough to be believable, but never provided more information than necessary. She never asked for a lawyer, never demanded to know why she was being held, and never showed any signs of wanting to leave. The evidence against Elena was circumstantial at best. A witness had seen a woman matching her description near Marcus Chen's business the day before he disappeared. Her fingerprints had been found on a coffee cup at a restaurant where Marcus was known to eat lunch regularly. These connections were suspicious but hardly enough to build a solid case. Detective Rodriguez decided to change tactics. He had dealt with professional criminals before and recognized the signs. Elena's calm demeanor, her practiced answers, and her complete lack of concern about the situation suggested she might have more experience with law enforcement than she was letting on. He began asking about her background, her employment history, and how long she had been in the area. Elena's answers revealed little. She claimed to work as a freelance translator, which would explain her apparent intelligence and possible travel experience. She said she had moved to the area 6 months earlier for a change of scenery and had been living in a small apartment downtown. When asked for references or previous addresses, she provided information that would take time to verify. The breakthrough came when Detective Martinez noticed something odd about Elena's hands. Despite her claim of working as a translator, which would involve a lot of typing and paperwork, her hands showed calluses in unusual places. These weren't the soft hands of someone who spent their days at a computer. Instead, they suggested someone who was accustomed to physical work, or perhaps handling tools and weapons. Detective Rodriguez also picked up on subtle inconsistencies in Elena's story. Her accent seemed to shift slightly when she was concentrating on her answers. Her knowledge of the local area was too detailed for someone who claimed to have only lived there for 6 months. Most telling was her reaction to certain questions about her past. While she remained calm throughout most of the interrogation, There were brief moments when her eyes would narrow slightly, or her jaw would tighten almost imperceptibly. As the hours passed, both detectives began to realize they were dealing with someone far more complex than a typical suspect. Elena's behavior suggested extensive training in resisting interrogation techniques. Her answers were too perfect, her demeanor too controlled. Everything about her screamed professional. But professional, what remained unclear. The interrogation room had become a battle of wills. Detective Martinez found herself both frustrated and fascinated by Elena. In her years of experience, she had encountered many different types of criminals, from desperate drug addicts to calculating white-collar criminals. Elena fit none of these categories. She seemed to operate on a completely different level, as if she was playing a game where only she knew the rules. Detective Rodriguez was growing increasingly agitated. His usual techniques weren't working, and he could sense that Elena was somehow controlling the flow of the conversation, despite being the one answering questions. It was clear that a different approach would be needed if they were going to get any useful information from her. As the first day of interrogation came to an end, both detectives knew they were facing their most challenging case yet. Elena Volkov remained an enigma, and the death of Marcus Chen was still shrouded in mystery. Tomorrow would bring new questions and hopefully new answers, but one thing was certain. Elena was far more than she appeared to be. The second day of interrogation began with Detective Martinez reviewing everything they had learned about Elena Volkov overnight. The background check had raised more questions than answers. The apartment she claimed to live in was rented under a name that didn't match any official records. The previous addresses she had provided either didn't exist or belonged to other people who had never heard of her. Even more puzzling, her fingerprints weren't in any database, which was unusual for someone of her age in modern times. Detective Rodriguez entered the interrogation room that morning with a new strategy. He had spent the night researching unusual cases and consulting with federal contacts about suspects who displayed similar characteristics to Elena. What he learned made him approach the situation with increased caution. The complete absence of any verifiable background information, combined with her professional demeanor, suggested they might be dealing with someone involved in intelligence work or organized crime. Elena sat in the same position as the day before, appearing completely rested despite spending the night in a holding cell. She wore the same clothes but somehow looked as fresh as if she had slept in her own bed. When the detectives entered, she nodded politely and waited for them to begin the questioning. Her calmness continued to unnerve both officers. The questioning resumed with more specific details about the crime scene. Detective Martinez described the location where Marcus Chen's body was found, watching carefully for any reaction from Elena. Most people, even hardened criminals, showed some response when confronted with details of violent crimes. Elena listened with the same expression she might use while hearing the weather forecast. Detective Rodriguez decided to test Elena's knowledge by asking technical questions about firearms. The murder weapon had been a 9mm handgun, and the shot placement suggested someone with considerable skill and training. When he mentioned these details, Elena's expression didn't change, but she did ask a clarifying question about the bullet trajectory that revealed more knowledge about ballistics than most civilians would possess. The breakthrough began when Detective Martinez started asking about Elena's travel history. She claimed to have lived in several different states over the past few years, always for work-related reasons. However, when pressed for specific details about these locations, Elena provided information that was accurate but too general. She knew the names of major streets and landmarks but couldn't recall smaller details that someone who had actually lived in those places would remember. Detective Rodriguez brought in photographs of various cities and asked Elena to point out locations she claimed to have lived or worked. Her responses were telling. She could identify major government buildings, airports, and hotels in each city, but struggled with neighborhood details. This pattern suggested someone who had visited these places for short-term assignments rather than extended outlets. The conversation took an interesting turn when Detective Martinez mentioned that they had been in contact with federal agencies about the case. For the first time, Elena showed a slight reaction. It was barely noticeable, just a brief tightening around her eyes. But it was enough to confirm that federal involvement meant something to her. Elena's demeanor began to shift slightly as the day progressed. While she remained calm and controlled, there was a new quality of assessment in her gaze. She seemed to be evaluating the detectives more carefully, as if trying to determine exactly how much they knew and how much they suspected. This change in behavior convinced both officers that they were on the right track. Detective Rodriguez decided to take a more direct approach. He began asking Elena about her skills and training. Did she know how to use firearms? Had she ever received training in self-defense or combat techniques? Elena's answers were careful and minimal, but her body language suggested that these questions made her uncomfortable. For the first time since the interrogation began, the most revealing moment came when Detective Martinez asked Elena about her language skills. She had claimed to work as a translator, but when asked to demonstrate her abilities, Elena showed fluency in several languages that most freelance translators wouldn't need. She spoke Russian with what sounded like a native accent, had conversational ability in Mandarin, and demonstrated understanding of Arabic. This combination of languages suggested exposure to regions of high intelligence interest. Detective Rodriguez brought up the subject of Marcus Chen's business more specifically. The import company dealt primarily with electronics and small manufactured goods from various countries. Some of the countries Elena spoke languages for were among his business contacts. When asked if she might have encountered Marcus through translation work, Elena's answer was evasive for the first time. The questioning revealed that Marcus Chen's business had been struggling financially for several months before his death. He had been behind on rent for his warehouse space and had been seeking new investors or partners. This information seemed to interest Elena, though she tried to hide her reaction. Detective Martinez noticed that Elena asked several follow-up questions about Marcus's business dealings, which was unusual for someone who claimed never to have met him. As the day wore on, both detectives began to piece together a theory about Elena's true identity. Her language skills, lack of verifiable background, knowledge of firearms, and familiarity with various cities suggested she might be involved in intelligence work, either for the government or a foreign entity. Marcus Chen's import business could have been a front for other activities, or he might have unknowingly become involved in something larger than he understood. Elena's behavior throughout the second day confirmed that she was far more than she appeared. Her questions about Marcus's business showed she had knowledge about import-export operations that went beyond casual interest. Her reactions to certain topics suggested she was familiar with law enforcement procedures and federal investigations. Most importantly, her complete lack of concern about her situation indicated she either had powerful connections or believed she would be released. Soon Detective Martinez found herself wondering if Elena was waiting for something or someone. Her patience seemed infinite, and she showed no signs of wanting to contact anyone or arrange for legal representation. It was as if she knew that intervention would come from elsewhere, making the detective's questions merely a temporary inconvenience. The evidence against Elena remained largely circumstantial, but the pattern of her responses and behavior painted a picture of someone with extensive training and experience in deception. Detective Rodriguez realized they were likely dealing with a professional, but whether she was working for legitimate authorities or criminal organizations remained unclear. As the second day of interrogation concluded, both detectives knew they needed additional resources and expertise to properly handle Elena Volkov. The case was evolving beyond a simple murder investigation into something that might have national security implications. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and hopefully new answers about who Elena really was and what had happened to Marcus Chen. The third day brought unexpected developments that would change the entire direction of the investigation. Detective Martinez arrived at the station to find her captain waiting with two men in expensive suits who identified themselves as federal agents. Agent Thompson and Agent Walsh from an unnamed federal agency had taken an interest in the Elena Volkov case and wanted to observe the interrogation. The presence of federal agents confirmed the detective's suspicions that Elena was more than an ordinary suspect. Agent Thompson, a tall man with graying hair and sharp eyes, explained that Elena's name had triggered alerts in several government databases. While he couldn't provide specific details about why she was of interest, he made it clear that her case had implications beyond local law enforcement. Detective Rodriguez felt uncomfortable with the federal presence but understood that cooperation was necessary. Agent Walsh, younger than his partner but equally serious, set up recording equipment, and requested copies of all previous interrogation transcripts. The atmosphere in the station had become tense, with officers speaking in hushed tones about the mysterious woman in holding. When Elena was brought to the interrogation room that morning, she immediately noticed the additional personnel. For the first time since her arrest, she showed a genuine smile. It wasn't the polite expression she had maintained during previous questioning, but something that suggested satisfaction, or perhaps relief. This reaction told everyone present that federal involvement was exactly what she had been expecting. Agent Thompson took the lead in questioning, his approach markedly different from the local detectives. He spoke to Elena as if he already knew who she was, asking about operations rather than alibis, missions rather than whereabouts. Elena's responses became more guarded but also more professional. The dynamic had shifted from a criminal interrogation to what seemed like a debriefing between colleagues. The most significant revelation came when Agent Thompson mentioned specific dates and locations that corresponded to international incidents over the past several years. Elena's reactions to these references confirmed that she had detailed knowledge of events that were classified at the highest levels of government. Detective Martinez realized they had been questioning someone who operated in the shadowy world of international intelligence. Elena's true identity began to emerge. Through careful questioning by Agent Walsh, she was revealed to be a former operative who had worked for various agencies in different capacities over the past decade. Her expertise lay in infiltration and intelligence gathering, often involving deep cover assignments that required her to assume completely new identities for months or years at a time. The connection to Marcus Chen became clearer as more information was revealed. His import business had indeed been legitimate, but he had unknowingly become involved in a money laundering operation that was being investigated by federal authorities. Elena had been assigned to infiltrate the operation and gather evidence about the criminal network using Marcus's business as a front. Detective Rodriguez learned that Elena had been operating under deep cover for 6 months, building her translator identity and establishing connections within the community. Her mission was to identify the key players in the laundering scheme and gather evidence that could be used to dismantle the entire network. Marcus Chen was supposed to be a source of information, not a target. The federal agents revealed that Marcus had been killed because someone within the criminal organization had discovered he was being investigated. Elena's cover had been blown when Marcus was murdered, forcing her to go underground until federal authorities could extract her safely. Her arrest by local police had actually complicated an ongoing federal operation. Agent Thompson explained that Elena had been instructed to maintain her cover identity even if arrested, which explained her evasive answers during the previous 2 days of questioning. She couldn't reveal her true identity without compromising other operations and potentially endangering other undercover agents. Her calm demeanor had been the result of extensive training in maintaining cover under extreme pressure. The murder of Marcus Chen had not been Elena's work, but rather the result of the criminal organization protecting itself from what they perceived as a threat. Elena had been in the process of trying to warn Marcus about the danger when he was killed. Her presence at various locations around the time of his death was because she had been conducting surveillance to identify the actual killers. Detective Martinez felt a mixture of relief and frustration upon learning the truth. Relief that they hadn't been dealing with a cold-blooded killer, but frustration that they had spent 3 days pursuing the wrong angle entirely. The real killers were still out there, and Elena's blown cover meant that the federal investigation would need to be restructured. Elena finally spoke more freely once her federal status was confirmed. She provided detailed information about the criminal network that had been using Marcus's business for money laundering. The operation involved several other local businesses and had connections to organized crime groups in 3 different states. Marcus had been an unwitting participant who became a liability when the investigation began closing in. The complexity of the operation impressed even the experienced federal agents. The criminal organization had been very sophisticated in their methods, using legitimate businesses as fronts while moving millions of dollars through carefully constructed financial channels. Elena's intelligence gathering had identified the key players and mapped out the entire structure before Marcus's murder, forced the operation to be shut down. Prematurely, Agent Walsh revealed that Elena's extraction had been planned for the following week, but Marcus's death had accelerated the timeline. Her arrest by local police had actually provided perfect cover for her extraction. As it appeared, she was being taken into custody rather than rescued by federal authorities. The criminal organization would assume she had been compromised by her association with Marcus rather than suspecting her true identity. Detective Rodriguez asked about Elena's safety now that her cover was blown. Agent Thompson explained that she would need to be relocated and given a new identity, as the criminal organization would likely target her if they discovered she was still alive and free. Elena's years of service had earned her protection, but it meant she would need to disappear completely from her current life. The revelation of Elena's true identity and mission reframed the entire case. What had appeared to be a simple murder investigation was actually the tip of a much larger criminal conspiracy involving money laundering, organized crime, and federal law enforcement operations. Marcus Chen had been an innocent victim caught up in something far beyond his understanding. As the third day concluded, Detective Martinez realized how much she had learned about the hidden world of federal investigations and undercover operations. Elena Volkov, or whatever her real name might be, represented a level of dedication and sacrifice that most people never encountered. Her calm demeanor during interrogation now made perfect sense, as she had been protecting not just herself, but an entire operation and other agents still in the field. The fourth day marked a complete transformation in the investigation, as Elena's cooperation opened up new avenues that local police had never imagined existed. With her federal status confirmed and protection arrangements being made, Elena began providing detailed intelligence about the criminal network that had cost Marcus Chen his life. The interrogation room had become a briefing center where Elena drew organizational charts and explained complex financial schemes. Detective Martinez found herself learning about criminal enterprises that operated on a scale she had never encountered. In her local law enforcement career, Elena described how the money laundering operation used a network of seemingly legitimate businesses across multiple states to move drug money, arms dealing profits, and human trafficking revenue through the financial system. Marcus Chen's import business had been selected because of its international connections and his reputation for honest dealing. The sophistication of the criminal organization surprised even the federal agents. Elena explained how they had researched Marcus for months before approaching him with what appeared to be legitimate business opportunities. They had slowly drawn him into their operation by offering lucrative contracts that seemed too good to refuse. Marcus had no idea that the goods he was importing contained hidden compartments, or that his financial transactions were being used to clean dirty money. Elena's detailed knowledge of the operation revealed the extent of her successful infiltration. She had identified the three main leaders of the organization, mapped their communication methods, documented their financial procedures, and even discovered their plans for expansion into new territories. Her intelligence had been crucial in building the federal case, but Marcus's murder had forced authorities to act before they were ready to make arrests. Detective Rodriguez learned that the actual killer of Marcus Chen was a professional assassin, known only by the code name Cleaner. Elena had been tracking this individual for weeks, trying to identify their real name and location. The Cleaner was responsible for eliminating threats to the organization and had a reputation for making deaths look like random crimes or accidents. Marcus's execution-style murder was actually unusual for this killer's typical methods. The federal agents revealed that Elena's real name was classified, but her service record included successful operations in Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, and South America. She specialized in long-term deep-cover assignments that required her to completely immerse herself in criminal organizations while maintaining her psychological stability and operational effectiveness. Her current assignment had been one of her most challenging, due to the organization's paranoid security measures. Elena described how the criminal network had become suspicious of increased law enforcement attention in recent months. They had begun conducting counter-surveillance operations and had implemented new security protocols that made intelligence gathering much more difficult. Marcus's murder was part of a general purge of anyone they considered a potential threat or liability to their operation. The conversation revealed that Elena had developed genuine feelings of concern for Marcus during her investigation. While maintaining her professional distance, she had come to respect his honest business practices and worry about his safety, as the organization's paranoia increased. She had been in the process of trying to find a way to warn him, without compromising her cover when he was killed. Detective Martinez asked Elena about the specific evidence she had gathered against the organization. Elena described financial records she had photographed, recorded conversations between key players, and documentation of their money laundering procedures. This evidence was stored in multiple secure locations and would be crucial for the prosecutions that would follow once arrests were made. The federal agents explained that Elena's blown cover meant they would need to accelerate their timeline for taking down the organization. Originally planned as a coordinated operation that would have occurred over several months, they now had perhaps weeks before the criminals realized Elena was still alive and operational. This urgency added pressure to already complex logistical challenges. Elena provided information about the organization's safe houses, communication methods, and escape plans. She had learned that they maintained detailed contingency plans for law enforcement raids and had established escape routes that would allow key players to flee the country quickly if necessary. This information would be crucial for planning simultaneous arrests that would prevent the leaders from escaping. Detective Rodriguez was impressed by Elena's memory for details and her analytical approach to describing the criminal operation. She spoke about complex financial transactions and organizational structures with the precision of someone who had been trained to remember and analyze vast amounts of information. Her briefing was more thorough than many written reports he had seen during his career. The discussion revealed that Marcus's import business was just one of 12 businesses being used by the organization for money laundering purposes. Elena had identified restaurants, construction companies, auto repair shops, and other legitimate businesses that had been compromised in similar ways to Marcus's operation. The scope of the criminal enterprise was far larger than anyone had initially suspected. Elena explained how the organization recruited businesses for their money laundering scheme. They looked for owners who were struggling financially, had good reputations in their communities, and operated businesses that involved regular cash transactions or international connections. They would approach these owners with offers of financial partnership that gradually drew them deeper into illegal activities. The federal agents revealed that Elena's intelligence had already led to the identification of criminal operations in 7 different states. Her work had provided the foundation for what would become one of the largest coordinated law enforcement actions against money laundering in recent years. The impact of her sacrifice in maintaining deep cover would extend far beyond Marcus Chen's murder case. Detective Martinez learned that Elena would soon disappear into witness protection with a completely new identity. Her years of service had earned her a comfortable retirement, but it would come at the cost of leaving behind everything and everyone from her current life. The sacrifice required of undercover agents like Elena was something most people could never fully comprehend. As the 4th day concluded, Elena had transformed from a mysterious murder suspect into a valuable intelligence asset whose information would help dismantle a major criminal organization. Her calm demeanor during the previous days of interrogation now represented not arrogance or psychopathy, but the professional discipline of someone trained to protect crucial operations even under extreme pressure. The case had evolved from a simple murder investigation into a window into the complex world of federal law enforcement and organized crime. Detective Martinez realized that Elena Volkov represented just one small part of a much larger ongoing battle between law enforcement and criminal organizations that operated far beyond the scope of local police departments. The 5th day brought an unexpected twist that would test everyone's assumptions about Elena and the case they thought they understood. Detective Rodriguez arrived at the station to find Agent Thompson looking troubled and Agent Walsh speaking urgently into his phone. Something had happened overnight that changed their understanding of the situation, and Elena's story was about to become even more complicated. Agent Thompson explained that during routine verification of Elena's intelligence, federal analysts had discovered inconsistencies in some of her reports about the criminal organization. Certain details about financial transactions didn't match other intelligence sources, and some of the organizational structure she had described conflicted with information from other ongoing investigations. These discrepancies raised questions about whether Elena was telling the complete Truth, Detective Martinez felt a familiar unease return as she realized they might still not have the full picture about Elena Volkov. The federal agents had begun conducting additional background checks and discovered that Elena's service record, while extensive, contained gaps that couldn't be easily explained. Some of her previous assignments had ended with questions about her methods and loyalties that were never fully resolved. The morning interrogation session took on a different tone as Agent Walsh confronted Elena about the inconsistencies in her intelligence reports. For the first time since revealing her federal status, Elena showed signs of discomfort. Her answers became more careful, and she seemed to be weighing each word before speaking. The confident cooperation of the previous day had been replaced by something that looked like calculated caution. Elena's explanation for the discrepancies was that criminal organizations often used disinformation and false records to confuse law enforcement investigations. She claimed that some of the conflicting information might be the result of the organization's deliberate attempts to mislead anyone trying to understand their operations. However, her explanation seemed rehearsed and didn't fully account for all the inconsistencies that had been identified. Detective Rodriguez noticed that Elena's body language had changed significantly from the previous days. While she had always been controlled and professional, there was now a tension in her posture that suggested she was actively managing stress. Her eye contact became less direct, and she began displaying small nervous habits like touching her hair or adjusting her position in the chair more frequently. The federal agents revealed that they had been unable to verify some key aspects of Elena's claimed intelligence gathering. Surveillance footage from locations where she claimed to have conducted operations didn't show her presence, and some of the financial records she described couldn't be located despite extensive searches. These missing pieces raised serious questions about the accuracy of her entire briefing. Agent Thompson took a more aggressive approach in questioning Elena about her true activities during the 6 months she claimed to be undercover. He presented evidence that she had been in contact with individuals who weren't part of the criminal organization she was supposed to be investigating. Some of these contacts had connections to foreign intelligence services, raising the possibility that Elena might have been working for multiple parties simultaneously. The revelation that Elena might have divided loyalties transformed the interrogation once again. Detective Martinez realized they could be dealing with a double or even triple agent who had been playing multiple sides against each other. Elena's calm demeanor during the previous days might have been the result of knowing that she had backup plans and alternative exit strategies that didn't depend on federal protection. Elena's responses to questions about her additional contacts were evasive in ways that her previous answers had not been. She claimed that maintaining relationships with various intelligence services was standard practice for deep cover operatives, but her explanations lacked the detailed precision that had characterized her earlier briefings. The federal agents clearly didn't believe her story was complete. Detective Rodriguez asked Elena directly about her relationship with Marcus Chen and whether it might have been more complex than she had previously indicated. Elena's reaction to this question was telling. She paused longer than usual before answering and seemed to be considering multiple possible responses before settling on one. Her eventual answer maintained that Marcus was simply a target of investigation, but her hesitation suggested otherwise. The breakthrough came when Agent Walsh presented Elena with financial records, showing money transfers between accounts associated with her various identities and offshore accounts, linked to the criminal organization. The amounts were substantial and couldn't be explained as part of her undercover role. Elena had been receiving payments from the very organization she claimed to be investigating. Elena's carefully constructed story began to unravel as more evidence of her financial connections to the criminal organization was presented. The federal agents had discovered that she had been systematically stealing money from the organization's operations while simultaneously gathering intelligence about them. Her role was far more complex than that of a simple undercover agent. The truth that emerged was that Elena had been playing a dangerous game of playing multiple sides against each other while positioning herself to profit from the chaos. She had indeed been gathering intelligence for federal authorities, but she had also been skimming money from the criminal organization and potentially selling information to foreign intelligence services. Marcus Chen's murder might have been the result of the organization discovering her theft. Rather than his cooperation with law enforcement, Detective Martinez realized that Elena's calm demeanor during the initial interrogation made perfect sense if she had known she had multiple backup plans and escape routes available. She hadn't been waiting for federal extraction, but rather calculating which of her various options would provide the best outcome for her situation. Her cooperation with federal agents had been just one of several strategies she was pursuing simultaneously. Elena finally admitted that her relationship with Marcus Chen had been more personal than professional. She had been using his business not just for intelligence gathering, but also as a vehicle for laundering her own stolen funds. Marcus had discovered her activities and threatened to expose her, leading to a confrontation that spiraled out of control. However, she maintained that she had not killed him directly. The admission that Elena had been stealing from the criminal organization and using Marcus's business for her own money laundering changed everything about the case. The federal agents realized that their intelligence about the organization might be compromised because Elena had been manipulating information to protect her own interests. Detective Rodriguez understood that they were dealing with someone whose loyalties were entirely self-serving. Elena's final revelation was that Marcus Chen had been killed by the organization's assassin, but the hit had been ordered after they discovered Elena's theft and realized that Marcus was connected to her. Elena's activities had inadvertently signed Marcus's death warrant, making her responsible for his murder even if she hadn't pulled the trigger. Her grief and guilt about his death had been genuine, but so had her determination to protect herself from the consequences of her actions. As the fifth day concluded, everyone involved in the case realized they had been manipulated by someone whose skills in deception exceeded even their professional experience. Elena Volkov was neither a cold-blooded killer nor a dedicated federal agent, but rather a complex individual who had been playing a dangerous game with multiple powerful organizations while pursuing her own agenda. The sixth day brought the most shocking revelation yet, one that would change how everyone understood not just Elena's case, but the entire criminal investigation they thought they had been pursuing. Detective Martinez arrived to find the federal agents in heated discussion with their superiors via secure phone lines. Something had happened overnight that elevated Elena's case to the highest levels of federal law enforcement, and the implications were staggering. Agent Thompson revealed that Elena's financial records had led investigators to discover something much larger than anyone had anticipated. The money laundering operation she had been involved with was actually a front for a sophisticated international espionage network that had been operating on American soil for years. Elena's theft from the organization had inadvertently exposed a foreign intelligence operation that threatened national security. The criminal organization that had been using Marcus Chen's business wasn't just laundering money from drugs and weapons trafficking. They were also funneling payments to foreign agents who were gathering intelligence on American military installations, defense contractors, and government facilities. Elena's skimming had disrupted their financial network and forced them to activate emergency protocols that revealed the true scope of their activities. Detective Rodriguez learned that Elena's multiple identities and international connections weren't just the result of her federal training in criminal activities. She had been recruited by a foreign intelligence service years earlier and had been operating as a deep-cover agent while simultaneously working for American authorities. Her theft from the criminal organization had been part of a larger plan to destabilize American counterintelligence operations. The revelation that Elena was actually a foreign spy working against American interests shocked everyone involved in the case. Agent Walsh explained that her recruitment had likely occurred during one of her earlier federal assignments overseas, when she had been captured and turned by enemy intelligence services. Her subsequent return to American operations had been part of a long-term infiltration plan. Elena's reaction to being confronted with evidence of her foreign connections was different from her responses to previous accusations. For the first time since her arrest, she appeared genuinely surprised and concerned. Her careful composure cracked as she realized that her cover had been completely blown and that she was facing charges far more serious than murder or theft. The federal agents revealed that Elena's intelligence reports to American authorities had been carefully crafted to provide useful but non-critical information while concealing the most important details about the foreign espionage network. She had been playing a sophisticated game of appearing to cooperate while actually protecting the interests of her foreign handlers. Marcus Chen's murder had been the result of her operation beginning to unravel. Detective Martinez struggled to process the complexity of Elena's true situation. She had been simultaneously working as an American federal agent, stealing from a criminal organization, and serving as a foreign spy. Each role had provided cover for the others, creating a web of deception so complex that even experienced federal agents had been fooled for years. The conversation revealed that Elena's foreign handlers had been using the criminal organization's money laundering network to fund espionage activities across the United States. The stolen money Elena had been skimming was actually being redirected to support other foreign agents operating in different cities. Her theft hadn't been personal enrichment, but rather a method of funding additional intelligence operations. Elena finally began to speak more honestly about her true situation, perhaps realizing that her various covers had been completely compromised. She explained that she had been recruited during a particularly difficult period in her life, when she was struggling with the psychological demands of deep cover work for American authorities. The Foreign Intelligence Service had offered her something that her American handlers couldn't provide: a sense of belonging and purpose. The psychology behind Elena's decisions became clearer as she described her gradual disillusionment with American intelligence work. She had spent years sacrificing personal relationships and living under false identities, while feeling that her contributions were undervalued by her handlers. The Foreign Intelligence Service had provided recognition and financial compensation that made her feel truly appreciated for her skills and sacrifices. Detective Rodriguez realized that Elena's calm demeanor during the initial interrogation had been the result of extensive training in multiple intelligence services. She had been prepared for capture by any number of different organizations and had contingency plans for various scenarios. Her willingness to reveal information about the criminal organization had been calculated to deflect attention from her more serious espionage activities. Agent Thompson explained that Elena's case had implications for dozens of ongoing federal investigations. Her intelligence reports had influenced American law enforcement strategies for years, and determining which information was accurate and which was disinformation would require massive resources. Some investigations might need to be completely restarted, and other foreign agents might have escaped detection because of Elena's manipulation of intelligence data. The federal agents revealed that Elena's recruitment by foreign intelligence had been part of a larger program targeting American agents who showed signs of psychological vulnerability or professional dissatisfaction. She was one of several agents who had been turned over the past decade, and her case was providing valuable insights into enemy recruitment methods and operational procedures. Elena's admission of her foreign intelligence connections came with a proposal. She offered to provide complete information about the espionage network, including the identities of other foreign agents operating in the United States, in exchange for consideration in her sentencing. Her knowledge of both American and foreign intelligence operations made her potentially valuable as a source of information about enemy activities. Detective Martinez found herself amazed by the complexity of Elena's true story. What had begun as a simple murder investigation had evolved into a case involving international espionage, foreign intelligence services, and threats to national security. Elena's calm demeanor during interrogation now represented not just professional training but the confidence of someone who had been playing a game far more complex than anyone had realized. The question of Marcus Chen's murder took on new significance in light of Elena's espionage activities. His death hadn't been simply the result of a criminal organization protecting itself, but rather the elimination of a potential threat to a sophisticated foreign intelligence operation. Elena's personal relationship with Marcus had created a vulnerability that her foreign handlers couldn't tolerate. As the sixth day concluded, Elena's case had become a matter of national security rather than local law enforcement. The federal agents were now coordinating with counterintelligence specialists and international security agencies to understand the full scope of the espionage network Elena had been part of. Her cooperation would be crucial in preventing further damage to American security interests. The transformation of Elena from murder suspect to federal agent to foreign spy represented one of the most complex cases any of the investigators had encountered. Detective Rodriguez realized that Elena's skills in deception and manipulation had allowed her to successfully operate at the highest levels of multiple intelligence services while maintaining her cover for years. The seventh and final day of Elena's interrogation began with an atmosphere of grim anticipation as federal counterintelligence specialists prepared for what they hoped would be Elena's complete confession about her espionage activities. Detective Martinez had barely slept, still struggling to comprehend how a simple murder case had unraveled into an international security matter. Today would determine whether Elena was willing to cooperate fully or would maintain her complex web of deceptions until the end. Agent Thompson arrived, with a senior counterintelligence officer who introduced himself only as Director Hayes. His presence indicated that Elena's case had reached the highest levels of the intelligence community and that her cooperation could have significant implications for national security. Director Hayes had dealt with double agents before, but Elena's case was unique in its complexity and the length of time she had successfully maintained multiple covers. Detective Rodriguez observed, as Elena was brought into the interrogation room for what everyone knew would be the final session. Her appearance had changed noticeably over the past week. The composed, almost amused demeanor she had displayed initially had been replaced by something that looked like resigned acceptance. She seemed to understand that her various games had finally come to an end, and that her only remaining option was complete honesty. Director Hayes took the lead in questioning, his approach markedly different from the previous interrogators. He spoke to Elena as one intelligence professional to another, acknowledging her skills while making it clear that her situation was hopeless unless she provided complete cooperation. His tone was respectful but firm, indicating that he understood the complexity of her psychology and motivations. Elena's response to Director Hayes revealed the final layers of her true story. She admitted that her recruitment by foreign intelligence had been voluntary rather than the result of capture and coercion, as she had previously suggested. Her disillusionment with American intelligence work had made her receptive to overtures from foreign handlers who offered her recognition and financial compensation that exceeded anything she had received domestically. The conversation revealed that Elena's espionage activities had been far more extensive than anyone had suspected. Over the course of 5 years, she had provided foreign intelligence services with detailed information about American counterintelligence operations, the identities of other agents, and the methods used by federal law enforcement to investigate international criminal activities. Her access to classified information had made her extremely valuable to enemy intelligence services. Detective Martinez learned that Elena's relationship with Marcus Chen had been entirely genuine, which made his death particularly tragic for her. She had been using his business for money laundering activities, but she had also developed real feelings for him as a person. When he discovered her activities and confronted her about them, she had been faced with choosing between her espionage mission and protecting someone she cared about. Elena's detailed account of Marcus's death revealed the full complexity of her situation during those final days. She had been trying to find a way to protect Marcus while maintaining her cover and continuing her intelligence activities. When the criminal organization ordered his death because of his connection to her activities, she had been powerless to prevent it without exposing herself and compromising years of intelligence work. The federal agents learned that Elena had been planning to disappear entirely after Marcus's death, abandoning all of her identities and starting over in a country that had no extradition treaty with the United States. Her arrest by local police had disrupted this plan and forced her to activate contingency protocols that she had hoped never to use. Her calm demeanor during initial questioning had been the result of believing she could still execute her escape plan. Director Hayes revealed that Elena's intelligence had already led to the identification of 3 other foreign agents operating in the United States and the disruption of 2 major espionage operations. Her cooperation was providing valuable insights into foreign intelligence methods and helping American authorities understand how their own security measures had been compromised. However, the damage she had caused over 5 years of espionage would take years to fully assess and prepare. Elena's offer to provide complete cooperation came with a request for protection from foreign intelligence services who would likely target her for elimination once her betrayal became known. She explained that her foreign handlers had made it clear that agents who were captured and cooperated with American authorities would be eliminated as examples to other potential defectors. Her safety would require the highest levels of witness protection. The questioning revealed that Elena's skills in manipulation and deception had been developed over years of working for multiple intelligence services simultaneously. She had become expert at compartmentalizing information and maintaining separate personas that never conflicted with each other. Her ability to pass polygraph tests and resist traditional interrogation techniques had been the result of extensive training and natural psychological abilities. Detective Rodriguez asked Elena directly about her motivations for choosing espionage over loyalty to the country that had trained and trusted her. Her answer revealed a complex mix of financial incentives, professional recognition, and personal psychological needs that had made foreign recruitment appealing. She had felt undervalued and expendable in American intelligence work, while foreign handlers had made her feel essential and appreciated. The final revelation came when Elena provided detailed information about a planned foreign intelligence operation that was scheduled to occur within the next month. Her cooperation in providing this intelligence would prevent a significant security breach and potentially save American lives. Director Hayes made it clear that this information was valuable enough to influence her eventual sentencing, but wouldn't eliminate the serious charges she faced. Elena's complete confession took most of the day, as she systematically revealed details about her espionage activities, foreign contacts, and the intelligence she had provided to enemy services. Her cooperation was extraordinary in its comprehensiveness, suggesting that she had decided to completely abandon her foreign loyalties in favor of whatever protection and consideration American authorities might provide. Detective Martinez found herself reflecting on how Elena's case had challenged every assumption about criminal behavior and motivation that she had developed during her career. Elena wasn't a traditional criminal driven by simple greed or violence, but rather a complex individual whose psychological needs and professional frustrations had led her down a path of increasing deception and betrayal. As the seventh day concluded, Elena's transformation was complete. She had evolved from mysterious murder suspect to federal agent to criminal conspirator to foreign spy, and finally to cooperating witness in a major counterintelligence operation. Her case would be studied for years as an example of the complexity of modern espionage and the psychological factors that drive individuals to betray their countries. The impact of Elena's case extended far beyond Marcus Chen's tragic death. Her espionage activities had compromised numerous American intelligence operations and endangered the lives of other agents. However, her cooperation was now helping authorities understand and repair the damage while preventing future security breaches. Director Hayes noted that Elena's case represented both one of the most serious security compromises in recent years and one of the most valuable counterintelligence windfalls, as her detailed knowledge of foreign intelligence operations provided unprecedented insights into enemy activities. Elena's final statement to the investigators was an acknowledgement of the damage her actions had caused and an expression of genuine remorse for Marcus Chen's death. While she couldn't undo the harm she had inflicted through years of espionage, her cooperation would help protect other innocent people from similar fates. Her calm reply about her activities had indeed left every officer speechless, but not because of cold-blooded murder. Instead, they were stunned by the revelation of espionage activities that had operated successfully under their noses for years, conducted by someone whose skills in deception exceeded anything they had encountered in their careers.